Hello there everyone, Inky Fingers here from Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Well, today I'm going to paint this rather nice oldie-fashioned building in a 2-point perspective. What do I mean about 2-point perspective? You have 2 vanishing points to get this sort of 3/4 sort of view. Now I have covered perspective earlier in an earlier video, but that was mainly talking about using a set of proportional scale dividers to sort of work out the perspective without having to do lots of lines going down to vanishing points and all of that type of thing. But this video I'm going to draw and paint this scene, this building, by using the traditional way of doing a horizon line, putting your vanishing points and then converging all the lines down to these points and then working out their perspective. So let's get on with it. So a quick recap of what 2-point perspective is. To work out 2-point perspective, we have a building and obviously you've got 2 points for the perspective. Now this building in a 2-point is always you're on a corner, standing on a corner. So it's going to be more like a 3/4 type view. So we need our horizon line. And then we have the corner of our building. So we'll have to have like a vanishing point. There's the first point, and then we'll have a vanishing point there. That's the second vanishing point. So all we need to do to get perspectively correct is to the bottom of the building, we'll just follow that line up on an angle to that point. Same as the top, go from that point and you just follow a line up, and then you do the same for this angle. So you just put it down to there, and the bottom of the building we just go up to that point like so. So we've got 2 sides of the building going at an angle, going to a vanishing point. And then to make the building itself, say we'll have that one wall there, one wall there. We'll just make this a little bit stronger. And there we have a cube that's perspectively correct. Now to put a roof on it, because it's a building, simple roof, I would sort of measure the middle, just put a little dotted line up, and then whatever angle you want your roof to be, we know the point, the center point of the middle of the roof. And then this part of the roof will also have to come down to that vanishing point. So that would come up, or that will go down there, down. That will go to the vanishing point. We'll just put a little bit of an angle there, just so the back side of that roof comes down and attaches itself to the eaves. And there we have a building, simple 2-point perspective building. And you do the same with the windows. So we'll just put, like we've got a window here, we'll put a window there, and we'll just put a line going down to perspective, a line going down there to the perspective point, and then all we need to do is draw one window, do the same for another one. We have a third one. Of course, as the windows are going away from us, perspectively they get thinner. And you would have that like that, and then you've got basically a perspectively correct building. So that's what I'm going to do in the picture I'm going to paint today. So this is the scene we're going to paint. It's a perfect 2-point perspective exercise. Now what we need is our horizon line and our vanishing points. So the green line represents the corner of the building of where we're going to use these points to go down to our vanishing point. And then the blue line in this case, that is the horizon line. So we've got that the side of the building, or the corner of the building, we've got our horizon line. Now the horizon line, if you're outside, is always eye level. So all we need to do here is we have the bottom of the building, and we draw a line going up, way beyond, until it gets to some sort of point onto this line. And you do the same with the top, and that, and the top of the roof, any windows, and whatever. So from this we have, so if we had our horizon line, the bottom of the building, we can see it goes, follow that up, and it goes to about, bisects the horizon line about, say, about there. If we go on to the eaves and we put this ruler on the bottom of the eaves and follow it down, that was about there, follow it down, it's a very slippy screen, follow it down, so that was, I said, that was about there. Then that should also go, and it pretty much does, it meets the bottom line. So we just put a little X or something, or a little mark just here on our horizon line on our paper, what we're going to paint on and draw on, and then we know that that line just goes to that line goes to that. And you do exactly the same with this. You put it could be a ruler, could be, you might have a paintbrush, or of course you could have a pencil. Same thing as something is just to use it as a rule. So you'd have that on there, follow it up. Now, of course, now we can see this is now actually going off the paper, so you would have to maybe just put a little mark off the picture itself. This is the thing about doing two-point perspective. One of the sides may actually go off the paper. It's just one of those things. Anyway, that goes up, maybe it's to about there, near the end of that, and then this goes down. You would just follow that down and join these two up where they join up onto the blue line, in this case our horizon line. Just put a little X, and then when you draw in this side of the building, you just put a line going across on that mark there. Do the same with the bottom, exactly like I did on this, and then you'll have a perspectively correct building. For the windows, you would do just what I've done there. Just follow it all along down to that the vanishing point on your horizon line, and you should have a very simple but quite accurate perspectively correct picture. So I've already made a couple of marks, a little grid mark on the paper I'm going to draw on. The lines represent, this line is basically the green line on here. This is going to be the line where the corner of the building is going to be. So we've got a reference of where to put it on the paper. The red line here going across horizontally is this line. Now, I always put a line across, want a line vertically and a line horizontally, just for measuring purposes. So this line going across here is just basically half of the height of the paper. And this dotted line, that's representing the blue line here, which is our horizon line. And what we can do, we can use our good old trusty proportional scale divider, of which I hope everyone has got. And I used this to make a couple of measurements to get the bottom of the building. So all I did, so I measured from the middle of this red line down to the bottom of the building. So from the middle down to the bottom of the building like so. And then I can put that measurement from the middle down to the bottom, and we get a little X there. So that is now the bottom of the building. And I did exactly the same thing from that point to the eaves, and from that midpoint to the top of the roof here. And then I just made a mark there and a mark there. So I've got these points marked, and now I need to know where the vanishing point on this side of the building is. So as I've already shown you, all I did was I put a ruler, the ruler down there, put it on, and then followed it up until it goes onto the blue line. But I made a mental note of where that is. So it was about here. And then you do the same on the top, and lo and behold, the top comes down and it matches the same point. And then what I did, just got the proportional scale dividers, and then from this the end of this the photograph, I just measured there to there, and then I just measured from the edge of the picture to where the point is, and I made an X. So now I know that point. So all I need to do now would be to just join up that point to that point going down, and that point going down, and then that would be nice and correct in the vanishing point. And then I'll just do exactly the same with this side, and then at the end of it you should have a nice perspectively correct building in 2-point perspective. Now I've worked on the perspective just a short while, and you can see it's far from finished, but the main blocks are in of this house here going down, the houses adjacent, and everything is going down to these, or would be down to these perspective points. If we look at the picture, we can sort of see how everything's going down and how everything's going down in the picture. So once you've got your horizon line in, and you've worked out where you can put your vanishing points, it's just a matter of joining, get the height of the building on the corner, of course. It's just a matter of joining the dots using a ruler, going down, same here, off the paper in this case, but that's usually the case, off the paper there. And then any other buildings that are higher, like this building here is higher, just work out the height of this, and then put the eaves going down to that perspective point, and everything should, if you're careful, everything should work out. And I can say I've got a good foundation, basically just shapes, squares, rectangles, blocked in perspectively correct, and now it gives me confidence to start and to draw in all the little details. And that's the picture fully inked in. I've mainly, on the houses, I've mainly focused on this corner house here. It's not so much pen work on this house, and these houses in the background here and here are going to be very, very loose. Barely anything there really, just to emphasize the point of interest here. So I'm quite happy with the outcome of the drawing and the inking in. So let's get this painted. So now to paint this, I'm just going to be, I think I'll be doing it just quite loosely, because this is just a sheet of that inexpensive watercolor paper. It's the one I've been using for the last few pictures. The paints I'm using are just white nights. So the sky I'm just going to pre-wet just to get some soft and fuzzy clouds. It's a little bit dirty, the water, because I've put some, this is a Jackman colour. It's called Summer Clouds. It's it's one of their granulating colours, and it gives like a cool summer cloudy sky type of sky. I'm just going to pop some of this in around here. I want to try and keep a little bit of light around the tree because we could have some leaves, a few little leaves or something in around on the branches. So I don't want it too blue around that area. Now I'm just using a little bit of, it's a touch of Naples yellow and a touch of raw sienna, and I'm just going to put a little bit of colour around the bottom of the picture. Maybe it's a touch up there. It'll turn slightly greyish once it hits the blue, but I'm not concerned about that at all. I'll just dab a little bit around here, just so it's not as strong, the colour. And I can go over the tree trunk here with this colour because the tree trunk's going to be darker, so it doesn't really matter. Now the sky's dry. We can see we've got the nice, it's sort of more of a stormy type of sky. It's got lots of texture. We've got some granulation. The colours, as this yellowish colour has gone into the grey and onto the blue, it's gone a slightly greyish as a wood, and it just adds to a nice sky. So now what we need to do is to paint in these red brick houses. Now looking at the picture, they are just an orangey red brick. So very simply, I've mixed up some light red and a little bit of cadmium yellow, and that's just going to give this very nice sort of red brick colour, sort of a modern red brick colour actually. And all we need to do here is to just paint in all over. We can go over the windows because the windows are not going to be much, and we have the same for this. Technically these houses are a little more darker red, but I'm just going to do them this red. Now for the chimney stack, it's the same colour, but I've just put a little bit of the sky colour in. That's just going to tone it down just a touch. It is a slightly sort of a darker brick colour in the photograph. And the roof, the main roof, well, it's a bit of a mix of colours. Look, there's loads of moss on the roof. We've got the brick colour, we've got some looks like burnt umber type of colours. It's quite a mix of different tones and colours. So we'll just have a bit of fun with it. I've got some colour here which I've just used for that, so we can use that. We can have a little bit of olive green. So it's definitely an olive green type light colour on that roof. We can have a little bit of, maybe it's a bit of burnt umber. Now burnt umber is always a little bit too brown for me, so we'll knock it down a touch by just putting a touch of blue in, and that's just going to dirty it up just a touch and make it a little bit more of a nicer brown, as we can see there. So there's a couple of colours. You know, I might even just put a little bit of raw sienna in there. So we've got 4 different colours for this roof. So I'll start with a little bit of raw sienna, maybe around here. Then it goes into some burnt umber. Definitely darker down here in this area. Just mix the colours in. It's got some umber colours there, and then it seems to go into a bit of red around here, and then it goes into more umber again there, but I'll just put a little bit of this red around here, back into the umber, and then down here we'll put some of this green going along there. But so there's quite a nice coloured roof. We will put another wash on this, of course, but that's the roof pretty much done for now. Now the building itself, the main point of interest, it's a white building, but it does look, now this could be just the essence of the colour on the photograph, but it does look ever so, in places ever so slightly sort of creamish in colour. It's not white, it's a slightly, very slightly off white. So I think what I'll do here, I'm going to mix up maybe some Naples yellow and a touch of raw sienna, put a lot of water into it, so it's going to be a very, very, very pale creamy colour. As we can see, it is extremely pale. It's just taken that whiteness off the paper. And all I'm going to do is paint over everything, even this house here. It's just going to take that harsh whiteness off, and this will of course dry lighter, so it's not going to be as sort of off-white as we think. So we have something like that. Of course we've got to let that completely dry before we do anything to it. But while all this is drying, we've got plenty of other things we can paint. So I think I'll start on this wall here. Now this in the photograph is just yellow ochres and raw siennas, that type of thing. So we've got colours here. So I'm just going to paint in the colours basically I want. It's going to be similar to the colours on the roof. So we'll have just a wash of raw sienna. I'll stick some of the burnt umber mix in. Stick a little bit of this light red mix in. And then finally just put some of the olive green here and there, just to make it look like it's lots of moss and whatever. Or perhaps just a little bit of splattering with some clean water, just to give it a little bit of cauliflowering here and there. And that will add a touch of texture to something we don't want to put too much in. Right, now we're all dry again. Now the dark wooden beams are just going to be painted in with using some burnt umber and cobalt blue. Again, just to make it a bit more dirty looking. And I'm going to be painting them in with, I'm going to try this number 2 rigger, because I don't want to overflow the area, it's only small. And I want to get some age into the beams, so I don't want it to be just flat. I want to try and put a little bit of paint on, drop of water, pull it round to see if you can get some age. I might have to use a smaller brush in this, but we'll see. Okay, so starting with this big wooden beam here, I'm just going to put a little bit, and I think you can see I'm going to need a smaller brush. Stick this one on. This is just a very cheap, very small nylon brush, and I'm just going to pull this down a little bit, put it in the water, drop some water on, and then just pull it around. A little bit more paint. Do not go into the white. Maybe a touch more water, just drop it in there. And I'll do the same for this bottom part. A little bit of paint. Drop a bit of water on, and then try and just pull it around, leaving a few little flecks of white here and there, because this can be just the worn underwood, I should say. We've got some dark wood here underneath. this is more like it's in the shadow because this part here is actually overhanging. So, but I'll just put it on flat there, and then this gives quite a nice little, looks like aged wood. Let's do the same with these smaller areas of wood, and I'll just continue to go across here, go across there, and then I'll do this large area last, and I'll come back to that. So I've just finished putting all of this brown on the beams, dropping some water in parts, just to make it look a little bit faded in places. But now I need to put this large area in because if you look at the photograph, it is quite a substantial piece of wood. So if it's substantial, we can put a lot more, or try to put a lot more texture in by dropping lots more water. So same color, I've just made this slightly darker, drop a little bit of paint in, and drop a little bit of water, pull it around a little bit so we get this, you can see this patchiness. Back in, we'll do this. So I don't want to do this because I don't want that to run into that. I want each part done separately. So once again, we'll just do this. Now, as always, you blob it on. You don't do it dry. You have to blob it so you've got little pools, because it's those little pools of liquid that when you drop some water on, you've got something to pull around. So drop the water on, and then we can just pull these little pools around. Now it gets a little bit more difficult as you go down because it gets thinner. So we just have to put it on normally. Now I'll do the same with this bottom bit because this part's dry. Just drop some of that in there. Drop the blob of water on, as we can see, and then just dab it round. Tickle the paper with the tip of the brush. So we've got this patchy appearance. I'm going to put a little bit, this is just the raw sienna mix I put in for the roof. And I'm just going to put a little bit, drop it on here and there onto some of these beams, just to give it a little bit more of a tone, a colour. Just warms it up a tad. It's just a glaze really, but I think it does make it look better. This section's now complete. We can see that we've got all of this texture, darker bits, some lighter bits is basically the light paper, and it looks like it's old, sort of slightly decayed old wood. I've done the central bit a little bit darker than in what it is in real life, just to make it stand out from two similar tones above and below. The next thing to do is the guttering and this other stuff around here. That's dark, so basically black. So what I've done, I've mixed up some French ultramarine blue, some burnt umber, and a touch of neutral tint, just to make a nice, it's not black, it's sort of a slightly bluey black. And using the same small brush, all I'm going to do is paint in all of this dark area. I'm trying to leave a few little speckles of light here and there. And as I'm running the brush horizontally, following the perspective of the building, but any light speckles are also going to follow the angle down. So we'll naturally get these light areas going in the same direction. Now I'm going to attempt to put all these bushes and stuff in. Now I don't want to go overboard with these, so I'm going to put in some, it's like a cadmium yellow wash, a cadmium yellow colour. This is going to represent the sunlit areas of, or the lighter areas of some of these bushes, and I'm not putting it everywhere, leaving some gaps. And then I'm going to go into the olive green I put in for the roof, and then just drop some of the green in where I have not painted in with the yellow. I just want a mishmash of sort of colour, green, yellowy greens. And now I've just put some French ultramarine blue into the green mix, so that, of course, that makes it much darker. Then where I think I need it, just drop some of this in. Just let it spread out, do its own thing. I'm putting a little bit of burnt sienna into the screen now, again just to change it to a different kind of green. And I'll just emphasize here and there the slightly more of a brown, it's more of a browny green, a more neutralized green, because we've just put red in, and red and green complementary colors, they'll neutralize it. And I think that's all we need for that. Now while this is drying, I'm going to put the tree in. Now the tree's just going to be some burnt umber and raw sienna. And I'm not going to really do much with it. Just drop it in. I don't want it too strong in places, because I will add another colour to sort of tone this this colour I'm putting on now, because trees aren't really that brown. Now I'm going to put a little bit of this olive green, drop some of the olive green in, and then go to this dark green I've just put in here, and just put a little bit of dark green here and there. Then just let it run around and do what it likes. And then some of this black colour I did for under the eaves into the dark green, and just dot it in, and just let it run around in the wet wash. Let it do what it wants. Now a touch of water, just drop some clean water here and there. See, we know that's just going to give a little bit of texture. I'm just going to go in with a tiny little rigger, and just paint in a few little branches. Go over the branches I've already drew in with the pen. This is just a Daylon #1, very inexpensive nylon rigger. and now we've got to do all of this, the road. Now the road is extremely colourful, but I'm going to put an underwash of quite subtle colour really, just to get rid of the white paper really, and this is just Naples yellow and a touch of cobalt blue. It just gives it this quite nice warmish colour. I'm just going to paint in the whole of the street in this warm colour, just to get rid of the white paper. And now I'm going to put a touch of raw sienna into that colour, and again just sort of streak in. Now while that's drying, I'm going to go back to the roof. So the roof is much darker in places because this was just an underwash, of course. So what I'm going to do here is just basically use the same colours. I'm putting a little bit of burnt umber. I'm going to put some cobalt blue with it just to darken it off, and I'm just going to put in some little bit of colour, again following the roof down that way and then following the roof down that way, so perspectively it'll be correct. Trying to mimic some roof tiles basically. It's rather darker down here. We'll go into some more light red colour. Put some of this light red type colour up here. We'll go into the olive green and we'll put some of this olive green colour around here where I missed a bit when we're putting on the this brown colour. You've got some moss going all the way up there, I think. And we'll leave that as that. And I will just put a little bit of a strengthening wash on these here. Now for the windows, I'm not going to put black, I'm going to use blue. We've got some blue sky, so we can have a little bit of colour in them. So I've mixed up some cerulean and some cobalt. Just to get a sort of a weird sort of blue. I'll just paint that in very loosely. So I've just put some dark in these doorways here, and I've just put some, just to try to dry brush of just dark into the windows of these buildings, because these buildings are not going to really have anything. But now to put a darker wash onto the road. So I've put a lot more water with the colour I used for the under the eaves. And I'm just going to paint in with this colour. And I'm not bothering with all of the cobblestones, the brightly coloured cobblestones that the original scene has. Just tone that white house down so it's not coming out too much. I've just put a little bit of something on these branches. This is just the olive green I've been using within all of the picture. I don't want much, I'll just put a touch of the dark green here and there. Could be more of a spring scene. So the next thing to do is to put some splatter onto this road. The splatter, of course, is going to give detail and texture without doing anything, but of course we don't want to splatter everything else. So I've just put, as you can see, I've just put some lined paper across the parts I want to protect. So again, just splatter it on. A little bit of the brown. Bit of clean water. So let it blend in a little bit. Help it around. Then some clean water. Just help it around a little bit. The road's dry and it does give quite a nice little bit of texture, different colours, so I'll leave that. But now what I need to do is to put some shadows on, the scary bit. Now we've got to figure out where we're going to put the shadows. Are we going to put the sun this angle? So all of this is going to be in light, in sunshine, but all of this is going to be in shadow. It's a bit too much for shadow. Or the other way, same thing. I don't think it's going to work. So I'm going to put the sun coming in on an angle, coming down, striking the corner of this house. So we've got any overhang around here, all overhangs around here is going to have some nice shadows. And the shadow colour, I've mixed up some French ultramarine, a little bit of light red, and a touch of crimson. So it's a violet type colour. So plenty of paint in the brush. This is a number 7 round. And we're going to have some shading or shadow coming down along here. Same with this house. It's going to have the same across here. Just make sure it's blobby enough so it's dark, because it will dry lighter, of course. We'll have to have some shading or shadows along here, and then underneath here we are also going to have shading or shadows. And I think I will go to a smaller brush. So under there, I'm just emphasizing the depth of these shadows a little bit. So that's the shadows put in. There's not really many the way the sun is, but it does give a little bit of contrast. I've put another wash over the road just to make these parts appear more in sunshine. I put a little bit of more splattering over the trees or the leaves, and what I'm going to do now is with the pen I'm going to go in and just do a few little bits and bobs this is just to give the impression that there's some individual roof tiles. Again, very importantly, following the perspective down. Otherwise, if you don't, and all of your hard work getting the perspective will be for naught. You don't have to have continuous lines all the way down, just very broken here and there. Now with the pen, I'm just going to emphasize a few little, tiny little scratchy lines, which is going to make this look like it's cracked, but only on some of these large areas. And this is the finished picture. A very nice timber framed building in 2-point perspective. Perspective lines going down to one side, to one vanishing point, perspective lines going down to a second vanishing point. The picture itself, yes, it looks nice and sunny. We've got some nice textures here and there. The pen work has put some nice textures in, for example, the tree, some of the gaps between the blocks, and of course the very fine cracks we can put in the woodwork just to make it look aged. And once again, all done on a sheet of watercolour paper that only costs 12p. So if you're going to do a house or a building that's got 2-point perspective, this is how you can do it. If you don't want to use the proportional scale divider, as I've shown in previous videos, how to get perfect perspective without doing all of the lines. But either way, as long as you take your time and be wary of what you're doing, it works out. So I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration. If you did and you'd like to see more of this and you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe. It's free and it does help the channel. And also please leave a comment. That also helps the channel. So until next week, I'll see you then. So goodbye.